Baltimore Ravens must save their season in week number 6 against the Rams by pulling out a win, because if they don't, things are going to get pretty dire. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We bring you 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and a ton of content throughout the week. And on game days, we have these pre-game episodes to hype you up for game days. And then, of course, during the games, we have the Locked On Ravens watch-alongs. We also have the instant reaction show right after the game, as well as the Locked On Ravens squad show, and that's twice per week. So we got so much content, regular show Monday through Friday here on Locked On Ravens, and we're diving into the Ravens Week 6 matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. We'll talk about why they have to save their season in week number 6. Talk about how they do that. What can they do even without Lamar Jackson? We'll talk about what the Ravens have to do in a tough spot, the latest on the injuries, and as well as some final predictions. So I want to remind everyone, today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, Ravens-Rams week 6. Ravens coming into this game at 1-4, and you have a Los Angeles Rams team coming in at 3-2, but they are mad about how that game went to the 49ers last week. Rams right now, they're the favorites over on FanDuel, and that mainly is probably because of Lamar Jackson being out. But look, there are a lot of other reasons too why people are picking the Rams to win this game. The Ravens defense has been atrocious so far this season. A couple of offensive playmakers are still banged up, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And just seems like everything is off with this Ravens team. And this is now like the third straight week here on Locked On Ravens that we've had the must-win talk, right? The must-win. Oh, the Ravens have to win this game. It's a must. Well, it's been progressions here for me, because in week 4 against the Chiefs, that game was must win for the vibes, right? You didn't want to see the vibes if that team went 1-3. Well, all right, we know the vibes. It wasn't great. They went 1-3. Then we talked about last week, the Texans, man, you really can't go to 1-4. You have to get your season back on track here. You're going to be in a really bad spot. And of course, we saw what happened. We don't have to talk about that game again. Then now we're here. We're here for this week. We're here for this week. And 1-5 is an awful spot to be in if you get there. Now, let's learn a little bit about the Rams. I've been doing some research and trying to put things together here for the show and diving into, who this Rams team is. And my answer is they're a very good football team. Right now, on the offensive side of the ball, they have a high-powered offense. Obviously, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Devontae Adams lead that in the passing department. Third in the NFL in net yards per attempt was 7.5. They're able to push the ball down the field and be efficient doing it. They're 12th in the league in rushing, led by Kyron Williams, 4.6 yards per attempt. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, that Texans defense is really, really good, the team the Ravens faced last week. This Rams defense is also really, really good. The Rams right now, they're the 9th best passing defense in the NFL, 5.7 yards per attempt given up. They're also the 3rd best rushing defense in the NFL, just 3.5 yards per carry given up. And that's kind of like, with last week, the Texans were a really good pass defense, but they were kind of a middling run defense, and they still held Derrick Henry to under 40 yards on the ground on 16 carries. So this Rams team with guys like Jaire versus Byron Young who are able to rush the passer, you have big guys on the interior. The thing with the Rams specifically, and outside of their like top guys, they don't have a lot of like names that are household, right? It's not like Aaron Donald on that defense anymore, or Jalen Ramsey, or like Eric Weddle, like names you would know on that defense, but they're still super, super good at what they do. They also, at least defensively, they're efficient in the red zone as a defense. They're the 7th best red zone defense in the NFL. They're also the 8th best third down defense in the NFL. Now, fourth down defense, they're 30th. So, and that's on 10 attempts. So, or no, 11 attempts. It's 10 conversions on 11 attempts. So, if the Ravens get into some fourth and short situations, I think that's an area. I think you have to be aggressive, right? You're playing with your backs against the wall. I think John Harbaugh, Todd Monken, Zach Orr, this coaching staff in every single way need to get extremely aggressive. Pull everything out of the playbook. You're fighting for your season here. I'm not saying the season is completely over if they lose this game, but you're in a really, really, really bad spot if you go 1-5. If they enter the bye week 2-4, honestly, with how they've looked this year and everything going on and with the injuries that they've been dealing with, I consider that a win. Like it doesn't excuse what's happened, but I mean, 2-4 sounds a lot better than 1-5. Now, what can the Ravens do here themselves? Well, we know that the Ravens as a team are just not good right now. I mean, defensively, they're terrible. The offense is good. I mean, they're top 10 in efficiency numbers, both passing and rushing. The problem is that is largely a Lamar Jackson stat, and Lamar Jackson is not going to play in this game. So it's another week of Cooper Rush. I just think the Ravens have to really work play action in this game, but it all starts up front. If I'm being completely honest, the Ravens aren't doing anything this game if their offensive line has the game that they had in week 5. Like the Ravens offensive line last week could get no push. They couldn't block. They were getting bullied by Texans defensive front that has good players on it, but it was embarrassing. And your Ronnie Stanley doesn't have an injury designation for this game. The offensive line should be fully healthy out there this week. Doesn't look like they're making any changes. Maybe there's some surprise. Some guy warms up at a spot, and we don't know that at the time of this recording. But, I mean, look, you have to win up front because I say this all the time. It doesn't matter if you're Lamar Jackson. It doesn't matter if you're Derrick Henry. If 3 guys are in the offensive backfield in, a second, there's barely anything you can do with that. And that's what we saw from that Texans team when they were able to just beat that offensive line over and over and over and over again. So it all starts up front. Like that's where it starts. Now, once let's just say they do well. Right? Let's say the offensive line plays well. Well, then if you can get the run game going on early downs, play action is going to be the key to this game. It's going to be short stuff, intermediate stuff. You're not going to push the ball down the field a ton. I can probably see some Tyler Huntley packages happening in this game. Maybe, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 4 plays of Tyler Huntley. Maybe he gets on the field here for the Ravens. But the Ravens also dealing with an injury situation. And yeah, it's a lot of injury situations. We got an update from Ian Rappaport late at night on Saturday saying that Zay Flowers is expected to play in the game against the Rams today, but he won't be 100% and will likely play less than his normal allotment of snaps, but he should be good to go. And at this point, I'm just tired of the injuries. I'm tired. Feels like we have to talk about a new injury every day. Multiple new injuries every day. And again, Zay's been on the injury report all week with a shoulder, so it's not like a new injury, but I didn't know that it was serious enough to the point where, he's expected to play but won't play his full allotment of snaps. I mean, that's not good news at all. So then you're relying on Rashod Bateman, who's had a tough opening start to the year so far. And to Rashod's credit, he took great accountability. We talked about that on yesterday's show alongside Ray Lewis's strong words for Baltimore's defense. So a little shameless plug if you want to go check that bonus episode out from yesterday. But, it's Rashod Bateman. It's going to be up to him. DeAndre Hopkins, I think he'll probably get more snaps here. You'd say, oh, hey, what about Tez Walker? Well, Tez Walker's not playing in this game. He's been ruled out already with his oblique injury. So Tylan Wallace, does Tylan Wallace have another magical Rams moment in him or 2? Maybe 5, because they might need him to make that many plays because they're so depleted across the board. I think the tight ends, though, I'm looking at the tight ends in this game. That's an area, and we talked with Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams. He kind of talked about that linebacker group a little bit is, maybe that's an advantage. Troy Reader and some of those other players. Maybe if Mark Andrews can get behind the defense, Isaiah Likely can work some magic. But this, to me, again, it all relies on the play action game. And I know we're focusing more on the Ravens offense right now. We'll talk about defense in a couple minutes here in the second part of the show. But the offense, to me right now, it's going to be relying on getting it's a like 3-step process, probably a little more than that, but the 3 big steps. Step number 1, the offensive line plays well, blocks, opens up holes, gets to the second level, like does everything they're supposed to do. They need that first and foremost. If this team goes right now, with Lamar Jackson out, it doesn't go with Lamar Jackson when he's out. It goes with the offensive line. They need to get the offensive line going. Step 1, that's step 1. Step 2 is if the offensive line gets going, establish your run game. Get into second and medium, second and short situations. Make it second and manageable, third and manageable. Don't put yourself behind the sticks on second or third down. You need to be able to make it as easy as possible on this offense when it doesn't have a playmaker and a quarterback like Lamar Jackson on the field. So run the ball with Derrick Henry, run the ball with Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, get those guys all involved. That's something I want to see them do. That's step 2. If you complete step 2, step 3, work the play action game. If the run game gets going, you as a defense are naturally going to start either stacking the box more or creeping up towards the line. And so when Cooper turns to hand that ball off to Derrick Henry, if they're worried about the run, some linebackers instinctually or some players defensively instinctually will take a step towards the line, get a head start, try to read the play, get ahead of it. Cooper pulls that ball back, and you have guys, again, like Andrews, likely, maybe it's block releases or chips, and you're able to make something happen. That's what they need to do. This game, I think, is largely going to be predicated on play action. You can do straight dropbacks, you can do shotgun, but that's my process for offensive success here, because especially when you talk about Baltimore's offense in particular, conversion-wise, they're a middling third down offense. They're awful on fourth down, but the red zone, you need to convert in the red zone too. Red zone's been a problem for Baltimore offensively and defensively. They're 23rd right now in red zone percentage on offense. So if you get down in that red zone, you need to score touchdowns, because this Rams offense is high powered, and you are throwing out that Ravens defense, which again, they've shown me nothing that should put confidence in me to have that defense step up. So they're gonna have to show me something today. Hopefully they do. And coming up, we're talking about what they need to show, how they need to play the Rams, and a lot more. Who needs to step up? So stay tuned. We got plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Moving right along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you on this Sunday pregame, low game day edition for you. We have these pregame episodes every single week during game days. And then, of course, also during game days, we have the Locked On Ravens watch along. So we'll be watching along. We'll watch the game together. That's going to be from at 1 p.m. We're going to have it all the way through. Then we'll have the instant reaction show after that. Then the squad show after that. We got the regular Locked On Ravens podcast that comes out Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern time. That's the main show. But then we also have bonus episodes, big news, instant reactions. We had a couple of those last week with the Odafe Owe trade, and as well as the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signing. So plenty of Ravens content and coverage here on Locked On Ravens. Be sure to tell a friend and tell a family member we have them covered, much like we have you covered on Locked On Ravens. Let's talk about this Ravens defense. I know maybe people are probably saying, if maybe you're watching this and you're saying, do we have to do that? Do we have to talk about the Ravens defense? Unfortunately, we do. Because again, even if Lamar Jackson played in that Texans game last week and he put up 40 points with that offense, well, they still would have lost by 4 because they had to trot that defense out. Well, I have some goals for the Ravens defense today. I'm hoping they can make my dreams come true, because it's been tough to watch this unit this season. Number 1, force more than 1 punt in a game. Right? We're gonna start a little small here, right? Force more than 1 punt in a game. The last 2 games, the Ravens defense has been on the field for 20 possessions, 10 possessions each game. They've forced 2 punts, 1 in each game. And hey, let's force a punt before the fourth quarter, right? Hey, that'd be really fun. Forcing punts before the fourth quarter, that helps you win games. Second, consistent pass rush. This team needs a consistent pass rush. Odafe always no longer a member of the team. He's over in Los Angeles, and despite him being pretty invisible on the season, he was generating a decent amount of pressure. So he just was not converting those. So it's going to be up to guys like Mike Green, Kyle Van Noy, Tavius Robinson, couple others as well. Obviously on the interior, you're hoping the guys like Travis Jones and Aeneas Peebles can step up to the plate there alongside others. And, I think Zach Orr has to bring blitzes. I think Zach Orr, much like I talked about, right? I think Todd Monken, he has to get aggressive. I think Zach Orr, he has to get aggressive. You got to blitz. You have to blitz. This team has struggled to generate pressure with 4. And I don't think that's magically changing overnight here. I'm not saying they can't do it, but, I'm saying that there is a prime opportunity here for Baltimore to, say, hey, we're controlling the narrative here. They blitz and they control the narrative. It forces Matthew Stafford. Because again, Matthew Stafford, he's not going to roll out of the pocket on you. He's not Lamar or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's going to be there. And all right, if you get him, boom, like he's down, boom, that's it. Get to the quarterback, get to Matthew Stafford, force that internal clock to speed up. Because look, if they don't get pressure on Matthew Stafford, he is going to pick this defense apart. We saw CJ Stroud do it last week, and, no disrespect to CJ Stroud, but CJ Stroud is not the quarterback that Matthew Stafford is. He does not have the experience. And by the way, Nico Collins, beast, absolute baller. But this Rams offense has a lot more weapons than that Texans offense does, right? You're talking about Puka Nacua, who is on pace for record numbers this season. He's been incredible. Devontae Adams, who is another number one receiver still, in my opinion. Mentioning Kyron Williams, you have Tutu Atwell as a deep threat that they can bring to the table as well. Like, they have a lot of guys, that their tight ends aren't as much of a threat. I think that's one area where Baltimore doesn't have to worry as much about. Their tight end room is probably their weakest room on their offense, at least at the skill positions. But I think, to me, you have to get pressure. You cannot let Matthew Stafford pick this defense apart. But part of that is, like, it goes hand in hand, right? Pass rush and secondary. Because sometimes you're not going to get initial pressure. But if your secondary can cover it, and by the way, here's my third goal for the Ravens: play some press coverage. Get up to the line. Play some man coverage. Go do it. I'm tired of seeing these receivers just get cushions on cushions on cushions, and they're just, little slant routes in. Okay, 8 yards, 2nd and 2. It's just, this Ravens team, I get it. They don't want to give up the deep shot. They don't want to get beat deep. You have to do everything. I don't care what it is. The Ravens, in order to win this game, they need to get uncomfortable. They need to, and this is going to be season long, by the way. This is not just this game. In order for the Ravens to make a push, come back, if they lose this game and fall to 1-5, they're going to have to get uncomfortable organizationally, right? Loyalty, Zach Orr, if he loses this game, I went on with Ken McCusick on Film Study. Ken's awesome. We have him on here as well. And Ken essentially said with Zach Orr, this is 4th and 8 right now for Zach Orr. It makes a lot of sense to move on from him during the bye week, especially if there's another disappointing performance. You have the opportunity with the bye week to get a new guy in. I assume it would just be Pagano 1-for-1, but to not have to prepare for an opponent during a change like that, the bye week seems like a pretty big stopping point for Zach Orr's Ravens tenure as the defensive coordinator if the Ravens lose this game. And by the way, I don't think it's going to take a lot for him to get fired. Like, even if they lose, I don't know, 30-20, I still think Zach Orr would get fired in that case. Like, they would need a shakeup. They would need a change. And Zach Orr, I think, would be that guy. So they need to fight for their coach, these Ravens players. And Zach Orr needs to fight for his players with his play calls on the field. Get aggressive, man coverage, play up at the line. This Ravens defense is a bend, don't break defense. We know that. That's what they've been doing. Well, they are bending and snapping right now because they are letting up points at will. The 177 points they've given up through 5 weeks so far is the most in a 5-game stretch in Ravens history and is on pace to break historical records this season. And look, while Zach Orr, in my opinion, has a lot of potential as a coordinator, I think that with the right amount of time and the right amount of experience as calling plays and being in that role, he can be really good. The problem is the Ravens don't have time to wait for that. This is the second straight season in a year where you're supposed to have Super Bowl aspirations. You're essentially relying on a guy that never called plays before last season. And look, that's a really tough spot to be in. It's not about Zach Orr. It's about where this team is. And when the results are what they are, and you see the play calling being weird, you see the players not executing, like, it's a problem. And in the secondary, like, it's been rough there too, and it's a lot of it has to do with injuries, right? They missed Kyle Hamilton last week, but even when guys were healthy, right? Even when Roquan was out there, when Marlon was out there, when, Nnamdi Madubuike was out there, the defense still was not good. And Sam Njoku, we had him on the show on Friday, and I played this clip on our bonus episode yesterday, but I want to play it again because I think Sam and what he's seeing from the secondary is an important point that he's making about just where this defense is right now. So I want to play that, and then we'll talk a little bit about what he had to say. What's your biggest thing that the Ravens have to fix in the secondary specifically? And that can even just be getting healthy. But I do think while that is one of the things that has to happen, there are a couple of others as well that I think they need to figure out.
I mean, the philosophy from top to bottom is just it's really weird when I'm watching the film. And I took a dive at watching what happened in that Texas game. There was a real focal point here where I just say the play calling is not there. The way the DBs are playing the opposing receivers is strange because they're playing in such a way where they should know that their teammate has their back in certain situations and play leverage a certain way. And they're not doing it. They're playing as if there's one-on-one coverage, no safety help up top, or if they are playing help, the safety's not there coming in. So that's communication. It's not really, hey, this guy's just beating me one-on-one every time. It's nothing like that. It's just they're playing the game weird.
And look, I think that when you have an experience playing, at least as much as the Ravens did on Sunday against the Texans, there's bound to be just like, oh, do I do this? What do I do? And Malaki Starks even admitted, like, he's been overthinking things, and he's probably been doing that. So he just needs to play a little more freely. But it's a high stress environment right now, right? We talked about Jeremy Fowler's report yesterday on our bonus episode, where essentially the long and short of it was the panic meter is rising a little bit in Baltimore right now, and the Ravens felt like it was going to be a get right game for them, and they were shocked it happened. Jeremy Fowler thinks there's shock in the building that has to wear off pretty quickly. And again, I have no problem with the Ravens. I said this on the show yesterday. I have no problem with the Ravens having a mentality of, hey, we're going to go in there and win this game. You need to have that mentality. If you go into a game thinking you're going to lose, yeah, you're going to lose the game. You have to have confidence. But, it's been really rough for the organization. And when you don't have like Kyle Hamilton in there, we've seen what this defense looks like without Kyle Hamilton in short spurts. And it's really, really bad. That to me was not a shock. But it doesn't make what's happening on the field, any less upsetting or, any less disgusting, quite frankly, because for a team that has been known for their defense for their entire franchise history, even, Lamar's brought the offense back to Baltimore, right? Or maybe he's brought it for the first time because really they were never known for it. But, it still has been this team rests its laurels on defense. And this is just, it's a tough situation, which is why, again, we talked about Ray Lewis's comments about the defense yesterday, where, in terms of leadership and what they need to do, a lot of people are looking for answers right now. And this Ravens defense needs to do it against a team, again, that is really, really good and has a lot of skill position players that can hurt you on the offensive side of the ball. So coming up in the final part of the show, we'll be talking about the latest injury news for the Ravens. We talked a little bit about a couple of guys that we have other things to talk about, as well as some final predictions for this game. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And over on FanDuel right now, this Ravens and Rams game, it is massive. Honestly, for both teams, but the Ravens, they need to win this game. And right now, the Ravens are 7-point home underdogs. Maybe you like the Rams as the road favorite. Maybe you like the Ravens as the home underdog. Either way, you've got to get over to FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you. Game day edition, Ravens week 6. Crazy. We're going to be a third of the way through the season once this game ends. That is absolutely wild. The Ravens need to win to get into the win column again against a good team. I mean, the Rams, look, they'll be looking for a win here. Now, there is a specific set of losses. I have losses tiered, so we'll get to that in a minute. But again, this is Locked On Ravens 5 days a week here, Monday through Friday. Going to have the watch along at 1 p.m. that we'll be reacting to every play live here. This is our first year of doing them. They're awesome. Now, again, I wish the results were more awesome than they have been, but, just interacting with the community and watching the game from a Ravens perspective and interacting, it's been incredible. So thank you for the support on that, as well as just the show in general. 15,000 plus subscribers, almost to 16,000 now. We're past the halfway point at 16,000. So you want to be with us in video form on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. The audio form also grows every single day. So that community is awesome as well. So hit the like and subscribe button there as well. And let's dive into now what this Ravens team has to do just from a whole perspective. We've talked offense, we've talked defense, but I think the big thing here is buy-in. I'm not questioning this team's motivation. I'm not questioning their effort, but it just feels like the vibe's been off. I've been saying it all year. Like something is just off. The messaging, maybe guys aren't buying in. I don't know. Like they right now have to come together as one. They have to, because at this point, when you're kind of going through what you're going through, the saying is pressure bursts pipes or makes diamonds, and you need to start making a lot of diamonds, or else you're going to be in a really tough spot here. Ravens injuries have played, a factor in that for sure, but it's again not an excuse. I use that as context, not an excuse. So the Ravens injury report. By the way, actually, before we get to the injury report, the Ravens made a couple of moves. They actually released Ruben Lowry, their undrafted rookie safety, and they activated Tyler Huntley and Keandre Jackson from the practice squad and signed CJ Okoye from the practice squad to the 53-man roster. Okoye was down to his last practice squad elevation, and they like what they see from him apparently. So Ruben Lowry, who had a stronger start to the season, but had really struggled in the last couple of games. I assume they hope to get him back on the practice squad, but there's a chance he gets claimed somewhere else. So Lowry officially gone, Okoye officially up, with Huntley and Jackson on their practice squad elevations. Now, I think the other thing people are looking at, we're going to do some live research here on Locked On Ravens. We're going to look at the weather in Baltimore. I've seen it all week. Like, it's been a big talking point about the weather right now in Baltimore for this game. People are talking about the rain. Oh, is it going to rain? Looks like it's not really going to do a lot of that. I mean, from what I'm looking at right now, when I'm recording this, seems like there's at max like a 20% chance of rain here. I think rain would favor the Ravens. And because honestly, what the Ravens have to do to win this game just straight up is what other teams have to do to the Ravens when they're fully healthy. And that is just slop this game up, make this an ugly game, ugly win. They're going to have to do that. Can't turn the ball over. You can't give the Rams opportunities. And the big thing to me is keep that Rams offense off of the field. What's the best way to stop a high-powered offense? I say it all the time. It's keep them off the field. Win the time of possession battle, long drives that end in touchdowns. Don't settle for field goals at the 10-yard line. You have to put up touchdowns on this Rams offense. Ravens are going to come in motivated to this game too. And they should have, again, a lot of their guys back. Obviously, the most important one will not be there in Lamar Jackson. But as we talked about the final injury report coming out on Friday, Ronnie Stanley, Roger Rosengarten, Joseph Noteboom, Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, and Ben Cleveland all have no injury designation in this game. And we talked about earlier how Zay Flowers is expected to play, albeit on a limited snap count, apparently. But you are going to be missing Chidobe Awuzie, Lamar, Emory Jones, Patrick Ricard, Roquan Smith, and Tez Walker. Coming out of the bye, the Ravens should be healthy, or at least very much more healthy, and you get that week of rest, you heal guys up. I assume Ricard will be back by that point. Lamar will be back by that point. Roquan hopefully will be back by that point. So you're going to get these guys back. It's just a matter of weathering the storm. The problem is they haven't done that effectively. And, you're not going to get Nnamdi back this year, unfortunately, Nnamdi Madubuike. So you're going to have to figure out what else to do. I'm curious to see how Alohi Gilman fits in and what they decide to do with him. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was not elevated for this game, so he's not going to be available. But Gilman, I think, should play a pretty big role early on, just as a veteran, if we're being honest. And I mean, getting guys back that have experience, despite the fact that Marlon has not been good to start the season, he's been there and done that. It's a lot better than what Keon Martin has brought to the table for them. And, Keon had a couple of really rough plays against that Texans team. You have to be able to play as a unit. And without Lamar, it's going to be really tough to pull out a win here. It's certainly possible they can. I laid it out. They have to make this game ugly. They have to win ugly. So, look, the Ravens have given me no reason to pick them in this game. They've given me none. When the guys are healthy, they haven't played well. When the guys are not healthy, they play worse. I can't pick the Ravens to win this game, unfortunately. Now, the good thing about that is if they do win, I'm going to call this a reverse jinx. So I'm hoping we get a little Locked On Ravens reverse jinx magic, and maybe that's the spark that we need. So I'm going to pick the Rams 29-20, but I'm going to hope that the reverse jinx magic works. But again, until they show me something defensively, I can't with a good conscience pick them, because what have they shown me to say, hey, we're going to suddenly turn it around? I mean, if they show me that this week here today, then yeah, great. We can go off of that. But I go off of what we have seen. This show, to me, I want to be fair. And, I'd love to pick the Ravens to win this game. I want to believe the Ravens can win this game. But with no Lamar Jackson, with still a lot of turmoil defensively, I think it's going to be an uphill battle. But again, if they win, Locked On Ravens reverse jinx. You heard it here first. So I hope they can do it. I hope they can get to 2-4 before the bye. But they just, I'll say it again, they have not shown me anything. So we're going to see how it unfolds. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. On the way out, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in the subscribe and audio form for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up, we have the Locked On Ravens watch along at 1 p.m. And then we're going to have the instant reaction show after the game, as well as the Locked On Ravens squad show. So be sure to stay tuned for what we have in store, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.